Okay, so you know how Milwaukee has the sausage race, San Diego has the Anchorman race, Pittsburgh, I believe, has the pierogi race, and Washington has the president's race.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about it, and that's probably one of the most fun, like, in-game events in baseball. What what would you think if we made that like a requirement across Major League Baseball, where every team has to have one of those races? Like the White Sox kind of try, and they have like a pre-made video of Bona Beef, and the whoever has the little tickets for whoever wins the video that day gets a free Bona Beef. Um, but I think these teams should have them or have characters actually on the field running that fit with their team name. So what would these other teams have running from foul pole to foul pole? Like my first thought was the Kansas City Royals. They have a huge opportunity here. We could have Lord, who sings the song Royals. We could have Queen Elizabeth, Henry VIII, Queen Latifah, Simba. There's so many options here for the Royals. Like, and I thought maybe the Astros. They're a pretty easy one to do. You do Halley's Comet, Pluto, a satellite, Apollo 11, just all these space themed things. Well, do you got any that you can think of off the top of your head that might be fun?
Not off the top of my head, but that would the Astros one be a race on land, or would it be like in the air? Like,
I think they would all have to be riding bicycles
yeah,
that look a little bit like moon buggies.
I think that sounds perfect.
I do have one for the Cubs though. You ready for this?
Okay.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Okay.
Pretty good idea. Hello and welcome back to Getaway Day. As always, I am Mason. He is Gautham, and we are under the sea. Welcome to the Shark Tank. One of our very good friends and regular listeners of the show came to me with an idea that we really, really liked. So we're going to do it tonight. And that is, we're going to propose a couple of ways to improve baseball. It's a very open-ended prompt. We're going to provide it to you, Shark Tank style. And then in the comments on social media, we want you guys to vote on what is the best proposal to help improve or fix baseball, depending on if you think it's broken. So that's our plan tonight. Altham, how are you doing? What do you think? Are you excited for this idea?
I am so excited. I cannot wait to see what you've got prepared, what you've got cooked up, because I know you've been putting a lot of effort into it. And yeah, I can't wait to share.
All right. So I think we're going to start with that. We'll do some This Week in Baseball after we've done our proposals here. So what do you say we get right into it?
All right.
All right. So I've built some PowerPoints to go with mine. So I don't know if you have it pulled up to where you can see the PowerPoint, Gowie.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, hello, Sharks. Thank you for having me. My name is Mason, and my idea is to improve between innings entertainment. Oh, probably got to click that button over here. So, I am asking for $100 million in exchange for 6.37% of my idea. So, what? Why did that? Crap. Hold on. Don't know why this got all off-centered all of a sudden. So currently, baseball does a really bad job at providing entertainment between innings. Yes, we have the seventh inning stretch where you stand up, sing, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Some teams, as we mentioned in the cold open, have the sausage races or fill-in characters here. Atlanta has the race against the freeze, but primarily between innings is used for beer sales and restroom breaks. That's kind of boring. There's a lot of dead time. It's about 3 minutes per half inning every inning. So other sport. Why is this doing this? Oh my goodness. Now it went back to where it was centered on the other way. Other sports have done a lot better job of providing entertainment in the dead times of their games. In basketball, between quarters, you have teams like the Indiana Pacers with Boomer out there that they get the trampoline and they're doing a trampoline dunks. They're doing some really intricate basketball maneuvers. They'll have guys come out with dogs and hula hoops and they'll do stuff. Football will have concerts, such as on New Year's Eve out in Baltimore, All Time Low and Alex Gaskarth performed at the game there. They'll have the cheerleaders come out in between the first and second quarter. They'll have like youth cheerleading groups come out. And it's always a lot of fun. There's never a dull moment on the field. And even minor league baseball is kind of taken on this idea of there's slow, boring parts where nothing's happening. Let's keep stuff happening. For example, the Bowie Bay Sox, the AAA affiliate, I believe, maybe AA, I think AAA of the Baltimore Orioles. They have a crawfish slingshot catch where kids go out and catch crawfish that have been shot out of a slingshot. It's very similar to what Gautam and I did at the Indianapolis Indians game a couple years ago, where they were launching footballs and we had to catch 3 of them, and then we got tickets to go to an Indiana football game. So the Bay Sox also have Bristles, the human toothbrush. He comes out between innings and cleans home plate. The Frederick Keys have a parent-child softball toss where the parent has to wear oversized pants and the child throws the softball and the parent has to catch it. I don't know how poorly that goes, but I'm definitely intrigued. So I really think that all of these other organizations, including some in the same sport as Major League Baseball, have figured out how to keep people entertained in the boring parts where nothing is happening. That is where Major League Baseball fails. They keep talking about how games are too long, they're too boring, and they're kind of right. Sometimes the on-the-field stuff does get boring, but they have so much dead time too, where there's not even players on the field. So I am proposing that we up the number of between-inning events. A couple that I've come up with, and this is not a comprehensive list of what I think they could do, but I think we should do Can You Hit Off of a Major Leaguer? They bring in former players who are not too old to where they're going to hurt themselves to face off against a fan chosen the inning prior. 100-mile-an-hour fastballs are off limits. Let's give the fans a chance, because otherwise it's not fun. Brad Thompson might be a good guy to come out and throw some pitches. Another idea I had, Heckler of the Game. So you got to make sure to get a fan that's not too drunk and is willing to listen to the instructions and follow them, because otherwise this could go very poorly. I understand that. But get them to tell pre-approved heckles of the other team provided by the home team. So, for example, if the Cardinals were facing off against the Braves, I might say, "Hey, Ronald, why do you wear a warning sign colored sleeve? Are you afraid fastballs over 90 mile an hour may harm passersby?" It would be fun. I think people would love it. So in conclusion, baseball can be more fun without being shorter, which is what baseball seems to think needs to happen. We need to have less of the game to make it more interesting. No. We just need to make the game more interesting. The dead time's more interesting. I think a minimum of 6 high-intensity fun events per game would liven up the 3-minute commercial breaks. And I say high intensity because there are some other events that they do, but a lot of them just kind of suck. So let's improve that. Thank you, Sharks. That is my time.
All right. Awesome job. I like the pitch.
Did you like the PowerPoint?
I did, yeah. It definitely added to the pitch.
All right. So what questions do you have for me?
I guess, why do you think baseball is so hesitant to implement some of these more fun things? Is Major League Baseball not supposed to be fun?
I think it's team specific, and I think a lot of teams don't want to spend the money on something that they don't think is going to be the biggest bang for their buck. Because these are little things. costumes for like mascots, which not every team has a mascot, by the way. I think they all should. But those costumes cost a lot of money. Depending on what things you do here, it could cost a lot of money. But like there are ways to, or events you could do that are pretty low in implementation costs that would just make the fan experience better. And that's why minor league baseball does it. But I think Major League Baseball is just set on how do we maximize our profit? And if it's not going to give us a revenue increase of X amount, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah. I do think that there may be a sentiment of tradition around like the way Major League Baseball games have played out over time, and like uh old like fans might be hesitant to implement this idea because it goes against like the way things have been traditionally, I guess.
Counterpoint: old fans will die sooner than young fans.
I'm just trying to make the case for some other fans. It's not really my view.
Oh yeah, but like I get that sentiment, and I get that baseball has always been a very tradition heavy sport. But just because something is a tradition doesn't mean it's a good idea.
That's
So
absolutely true. Yeah. No, yeah, that would definitely be a fun way to inject some excitement between innings. I will just FYI, the inning breaks have actually been reduced down to 2 minutes from 2 minutes and 5 seconds, I think, for this upcoming season. So they're pretty short now, and with the pitch clock being reduced even further, the dead time is cutting down a lot.
yeah, I think the one kind of negative to that, in my opinion, is there are games that are just straight up boring. Like individual games where the on field stuff is just not happening, where injecting something like this can build up some enthusiasm in those games. So like there's a time where cutting out all the dead time is maybe not the best move if you can maximize that dead time to amplify the excitement in the stadium. So all right, so that is my first proposal. So that is improving between innings entertainment. Gautam, would you like to propose your first idea?
Yes, I would.
Do you have a
My
PowerPoint?
I do not have a PowerPoint,
We'll go
so
back to
I'm
this
just
screen.
gonna do it all off my words here for podcast listeners everywhere. So my idea is called the Golden Out, and I'm supposed to ask for an amount of money, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
one $10 billion for 2% of my idea, because
Excuse me,
Major League Baseball
was that a billion with a B?
with the B.
I'm out.
Baseball is a big game, and this change is really going to revolutionize the sport because it's such a drastic change from traditional rules of baseball. And basically, imagine you're at your home on like a Tuesday night. You're watching your favorite team. They're down heading into the late innings. It gets to the ninth inning. They're down by like a couple runs. They get the bases loaded. They get one run home. They're down by one run, and they end up losing like the game, and they're out of it. Like they've lost it. You're feeling bad. Like they were so close to winning the game. If only they had one extra out. So the golden out would be implemented in the last inning, the ninth inning of a game, for the trailing team. They would get 4 outs in the last inning. In addition to this rule, with the fourth out or the third out, in the case of a double play to end the game, you would get the opportunity to have any one hitter in your lineup that's in the game just hit out of turn and take that last at bat or the second to last at bat of the game. And from there, you basically instantly add drama to ninth innings of games. Plus, the ninth inning becomes immediately high leverage because you've got 4 outs to deal with, and you know you're going to have to face a very good hitter, even if their spot in the lineup is not coming up. So it also injects a lot of strategy because who does the manager pick to take that spot? Do they take their regular best hitter in their lineup, even if he's having like an over 4 day? Or do they go with a hot hand and pick a guy that has 3 hits in that game? So basically, this rule is gonna change all ninth innings. You're always gonna want to watch that inning because it's such a major advantage for actually the trailing team to potentially get these games tied or decided and overturned. So that is my idea for the golden out.
Okay, so question for you. With this golden out, let's say 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth for the trailing team. You have a runner on third, and you hit a sac fly that would have been typically the final out. But with the golden out, you have extra time. Do we really want a sac fly to win it in that situation, or is there more stipulations where with the golden out it has to be scored on a base hit?
I wouldn't try to regulate it in any way. I would just let it play out all normal baseball rules with the addition of the extra out, basically.
Okay.
There is the very rare case where you could have a quadruple play happen in the ninth inning.
Ooh, I like that idea. Interesting. Quadruple play. Okay, so with the golden out being in the ninth inning, what happens in extras if it goes to extras? Is it Manfred man ball? Does it go back to regular ball? Does it continue with the golden out? Or is that only the ninth inning?
I think it could continue for any time that there was a lead change and there was one team ahead of the other. For the other part of the inning, basically, they would get that golden out opportunity. I would definitely get rid of the Manfred man because I don't think that's good baseball.
It would definitely cause a lot more scoring in extra innings if you had a
That's
Manfred
true.
man and a golden out.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So that would definitely be a little bit of a maybe not a conflicting thing, but it kind of takes away the point of the Manfred man. So, all right. I like that idea, but you said 10 billion for
2%.
2% of the idea. Wow. Okay. On that note, I'm still out because I don't have $10 billion.
Come on.
Also, that's a huge valuation, sir.
Hey
That's
man, baseball
$5
makes a lot
billion
of money.
per percent. That's a $5 trillion idea. No, wait. 500 billion? That's a $500 billion idea.
That sounds right to me.
Dang. I wish I had the same lofty goals that you do. It's an idea worth its weight in gold.
That's right.
All right. So I think that means it's time for my second proposal, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my second proposal is called the power distributor. Because not all home runs are created equal. Do I have you hooked yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so my terms for this idea. I would like season tickets for the St. Louis Cardinals and a single beer voucher at Wrigley Field for Gotham in exchange for the entire idea. Come on. All right, so in Major League Baseball, there's a lot of field disparities. For example, Fenway Park is the smallest dimensions in major leagues in all the major points of the outfield. It's 310 feet to the monster. It's 390 to center, and it's 302 to the pesky pole. Yes, the monster is like a 35-foot high wall that it makes it a little bit more difficult, makes it play like a larger wall than 310. But ultimately, that is the dimensions. Comerica Park has the largest dimensions out of stadiums with normal gravity. I mention that because even though Coors is the largest, it doesn't play like the largest stadium. I believe that goes to Comerica Park, which is 342 to left, or 412 to center after being moved in here last year, and 330 to right field.
What was it in center before? Just
420.
420.
Yeah, so they brought it in 8 feet, and they actually shortened the wall too. So the problem with this is that runs scored on a pesky pull home run are either 1, 2, 3, or 4 runs, all based on just the number of players on the bases at the time. It's just a normal home run. But if you hit a moonshot in Comerica Park over dead center field, you get the same 1, 2, 3, or 4 runs. This seems ridiculous to me. And then again, separate problem. What happens if all your power hitters get hurt? Well, then there's not really going to be all that much power in the game. It's going to be kind of a really small ball game, and people love home runs. Let's be real. That's a boring game. If there's no power hitters, all home runs are the same. If he hits it 550 feet versus he squeaks one over the pesky pole at 302. It seems ridiculous to me. So the solution is actually a 2-step solution. Step 1 is tiered bonus runs. All home runs have the same base score, which is runners on plus the hitter that crossed the plate. So that's the same as it is now. But we're going to have bonus runs based on the distance of that home run. Teams can go and put in colored seats to designate the different levels if they would like. It'll help add curb appeal to the stadium, make it a little bit more visually interesting, make it a little easier to help determine how many runs there are going to be. Anything under 400 feet does not get a bonus run. That's a pretty standard home run across, and pretty much all dead center fields are around 400. There are some that are bigger. Obviously, there's 412, the Comerica, that's the deepest. But 400 is a fairly common home run. So, but every 50 feet past that, oh, I accidentally put past 200. That should be past 400. That's awkward. We're giving away a lot of bonus runs. So every 50 feet past 400 gets 1 bonus run. 450 foot home run, or 450 foot grand slam, 5 runs. 500 foot grand slam, 6 runs. A 550 foot grand slam, 7 runs. That would make for some really interesting baseball. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Now we go to step 2. Steroids for all. We're going to help recovery time for the best athletes to keep the power hitters like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Trout, keep them on the field. Because ultimately, steroids aren't really going to help as much with power as they are recovery time. Maybe they can help some guys with power. We're going to get Tommy Edman a few extra home runs per season. I'm all here for it.
Can we give Miles Straw some like super steroids?
Yes, we're going to give Miles Straw uber mega steroids to see if he can hit 2 home runs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the point of this is that we're going to try and get some new in-game distance records. So I believe 587 might be the farthest hit in a major league game, or 560 something, 580 something was in the like home run derby or something like that. I don't remember.
Oh.
But we're going to see if we could get a 600 foot home run, because Mickey Mantle is the only guy who has supposedly done it. But a 600 foot home run would be massive. That'd be 4 bonus runs. So I think it's a great idea. And I mean, we're backed by the people here. Our producer, T-Rad, when I was talking to him about this idea, was quoted as saying, people do like the long ball. So the benefits of this are that there's going to be more tape measure home runs. There's going to be bigger highlights that we could put on ESPN. And we can introduce scoregami into the MLB, because this is going to create a lot of new scoring situations at the end of ball games. And people love tracking scoregami in an NFL. So let's bring it to MLB. More home runs, or bigger home runs, more runs. I think this is a great idea. Thank you, Sharks.
Yeah, so I got the person that's the biggest backer of your idea. and he's unemployed right now, and he's looking for a job. And if this rule is in place, he would certainly have many offers. And his name is Joey Gallo. Uh,
Yeah.
Major power hitters, like, this would be amazing for them. But it almost like we already talk about how much there's like too many home runs and stuff like that. That's become a big topic. 2019 with the rabbit ball, this would like just exacerbate that, right? It would just be like so many home runs because that's all people would really be shooting for.
Yes and no. I do think there's a couple other things that we could do with this to help and make it a more even thing. I mean, heck, we could make the fields bigger. We could basically take it so the corners are required to be back at 350 and make it kind of like Wrigley Field is almost like the smallest you could be. And take away some of those just like little short porch home runs and increase the amount of small ball from these guys like Jose Altuve, who Altuve has power. He can hit a ball 425, but more often than not, a lot of his home runs are pulled into the Crawford box, right? You got J-Ram and Nato, who pull a lot of balls to the left field foul line. Like, a lot of their home runs would be reduced, but you would have guys like Stanton, like Judge, that their home runs would be higher value because they're hitting them 450 on the regular. And so I do think there's some issues to my idea here, but I do think it would, if you add in a couple more rules with it, this could definitely kind of take away there's too many home runs, because not all home runs are created equal. It's not like you're squeaking one over the wall and that's making the big difference in the game. It's, you could squeak 3 of them over the wall, but if you have Judge go hit a 600-foot home run, well, you still lost. So
Yeah. So, but I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, we're almost normalizing the ballparks for like home run distance, essentially, right?
that would be one way to make it so that it's not just all home runs all the time. Yes, there's
Yeah.
other ways you could do it.
But so like there's a big technical challenge there of figuring out what the factors are and like how many extra points and stuff for hitting home run in specific parts of ballparks and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's why I think distance is or maybe you have specific scoring zones in the outfield where it's like if you hit in this section here, you get a bonus point, but if you hit it elsewhere, you don't. Something like that. Like almost make it more of like a target practice, kind of like a field goal post in football. Like if you could put it through the uprights, you're gonna get some points. So
Yeah, it's that definitely an earth-shattering baseball new idea. Um,
I feel like you don't like this idea nearly as much as you liked my other.
I maybe I just need some time to like wrap my head around it, but it's hard for me to like. One of the most enjoyable parts is the different ballparks, and I guess you would still have that. It's just that it's cool when you see like an Alex Bregman purposely just targeting his Crawford box to hit home runs. He's done that his whole career because he's basically using his strengths in the ballpark that he has to be successful. And I guess it would be different
It would
things
be,
they'd be shooting for. Yeah.
yeah, it would be different. And I think that's the biggest thing is like this is an idea that came out of the same point of thinking as just because it's a tradition doesn't mean it's right. Like this is earth shattering, absolutely changes the game past anything we've ever seen. This would be the farthest from normal baseball that we've ever been. But it would definitely liven up some baseball games and create some new scoring opportunities, bring in a lot more fans. And it's also a way to add steroids into the game. I'm totally for. So I couldn't just say, let's just add steroids. Like, you got to have a reason for it. And I think this is it.
All right. All right.
All right.
But the the steroid haters would say the Hall of Fame is we're done with the Hall of Fame. There's no more Hall of Famers.
I'll start my own.
Okay, new Hall of Fame,
Yeah, new
steroid
Hall
Hall
of
of
Fame.
Fame. Let's go.
The modern baseball Hall of Fame versus the old timey baseball Hall of Fame.
That'd be something.
This wall of fame.
Yeah.
All right. So any of the funny things I've said tonight are courtesy of my good friend Kasabi. He's making some pretty good jokes over here in the live chat. So want to give him a shout out. All right. So Galtham, do you have a second proposal?
I do, but I'm thinking about pivoting because I have this other idea. So I'm just now going to think in the next like 2 to 3 seconds which one I'm actually going to go with. Okay, I'm going to go with this idea for. So the idea is a baseball champions league. So we love the World Baseball Classic, and it was a great event. We got to see players from different countries, different international baseball leagues like the KBO, the NPB. We saw lots of players from Latin America, and it was a great event. This would be like European style soccer, where the best teams from different leagues um, around the world or in Europe, in the case of soccer, would come together and play highly competitive Champions League matches against each other. And by the end of the Champions League season, a champion of the world, you could say, or of the major league, would be crowned. So in baseball, there's obviously like some logistical issues with doing this because you've got a lot of travel involved. There's regular season baseball going on, so I think this competition would have to take place in like October. Basically, at the end of the professional seasons, you would take the teams that made the championship series in each of the leagues and basically seed them, come up with some way to rank them and then have a massive tournament with the teams. So it wouldn't just be national teams like we saw in the World Baseball Classic. It would be the best teams that have played together the entire year and um, kind of see how that dynamic played out in international competition because the game styles are so different from league to league. Um, in East Asia, the teams have a lot of emphasis on not striking out a lot, and they just have a different mentality and strategy when they play the game as well. So I think seeing full teams in action like that would make for some really interesting competition, and then you could have a true World Series, right? Like World Series of the Champions League. That's the team that went all the way. They went really far in their own league's championship, and then they also proved it against other teams from around the world. So that's my idea for the Baseball Champions League.
I like that idea. So I do have a couple of questions. One, how dare you? Two, uh, if you're taking the teams that were in the championship series per se for from the big leagues, are you just doing the NPB, the KBO, and the major leagues, or are you going to have like the Dominican leagues and some of them have opportunities as well? Because it might be better to just have the champion of each league, the World Series champion of each league.
Yeah, yeah, that would work too. I'm open to modifications. Get as many professional leagues. You get the Australian League in there. I mean, whoever wants to be there can be there.
I I do feel like you would almost need to have like a it's sort of like the WBC has their qualifiers sort of thing. You'd almost have to have like a full league qualify to be in it because you don't necessarily want like the champion of a league that just isn't quite there yet being going up against like the Oryx Buffaloes and the Dodgers. Like you don't want to put a team that's essentially the equivalent of the Modesto Nuts up against them because that's just going to probably be embarrassing. So
Yeah,
you
that's
do have
definitely the
to.
biggest challenge I think with just varying levels of competition around the world because I think most people think that Major League Baseball is the best baseball that there is, but I don't know. This would kind of prove that or disprove that. I don't know.
Well, and I do think there's something to that argument. Granted, that's not what this topic is. There's something to that argument, but it's also different baseball.
Yeah.
So, how do the different baseballs compete? That's definitely what you're looking for. And I love that idea. And I think you could start with a couple of different leagues, and you would also have to have basically like an IOC, an International Olympic Committee, but it's just a committee that looks at baseball leagues across the world and figures out how to rank them together. And you take the top 8 leagues, take your champion, and go put them in a bracket.
Yeah, exactly. But anything to like have some international competition, I think would be very cool for baseball.
I like that idea. I like it a lot. All right, so those are our 4 Shark Tank ideas. So just a quick reminder here. I had the improving between innings entertainment. Gautam had the golden out. Then I went with the what did I call it? The power distributor with the tiered home run distance, adding extra runs. And then the final idea here being a baseball champions league. So let us know in the comments on YouTube or on social media at Getaway Day Pod on Twitter, Instagram. We'll try and put up a graphic on Instagram so there's something to reply to. I'm really bad at remembering to do Instagram. So if I don't, someone call me out. I'm trying to get better. And just let us know what your favorite idea is. We will crown a champion next week. So we're hoping to get some pretty good engagement here. And I will make sure that the winner gets something. Don't know what it'll be. Cool.
Yeah, sounds good. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
I enjoyed that.
Shout out to Rachilet. I will always say the T, even though she doesn't want me to, for that idea. So thank you very much. And also, if you guys have a good idea that we didn't come up with, let us know what that is too. We'll take Shark Tank pitches from everyone else. So let's hear your ideas. All right. So what do you say we get to some of this week's happenings in the baseball world?
Let's do it.
All right. I think the biggest move of the entire offseason so far has to be Teoscar Hernandez to the Dodgers for 1 year and like $23 million.
Do I have to make the obligatory statement how much of the money is deferred?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much of the money is deferred?
Oh, that was. I thought you were telling me how much was deferred because I didn't know.
No, I don't think any of it is. I think
yes,
it's
it
just
is.
a 1 year.
No, it's
it
it legitimately has deferred money.
does it?
Yeah, it does. I
It's
just
a
didn't
1 year
know.
deal. How can
Yeah,
it be
and it has deferred money.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't either, but it does have deferred money supposedly.
Interesting.
We'll
have to pull up the payroll page here.
1 year, 23.5. 8.5 will be deferred.
Interesting.
To be paid off between 2030 and 2039.
Okay. So let's just talk about Teoscar Hernandez. Yeah. So he basically got more money than a qualifying offer, which he was not offered or he declined or something. And I don't know. He kind of had a little bit of a down season with the Mariners, but he was awesome in the years prior. He's really he's a tooled up player. He's the guy that can hit your 450-foot moonshot home runs, and he's got a cannon arm, and he runs really well, and there's a lot to like about him. His issue is that he strikes out a lot, and that seemed to really kind of bite him this past year, where he struck out over 30% of the time.
I mean, that's not really a departure from his career, though. That's pretty standard.
That's true.
Was it higher? He's only had 2 years. He's only had 2 years where he was under 30. and that was actually the 2 years prior. So it just
Right, yeah. It looked like he had made some gains there, and he kinda gave them back this past year, so
except he was already regressing because 2021 is his best season of his career. He struck out only 24.9% of the time. He hit 296 with
that was
32 home
amazing
runs.
season.
It was
Yeah.
phenomenal. He was a 4 WAR player. And then 2022, he was not nearly that same guy. He was already back up to striking out 28.5%, hitting 267, still hit 25 home runs. His defense got worse, and like he was a 2.5 WAR player. Then he goes to Seattle, which is even harder on left-handed hitters. He is a lefty, right?
He's a right-handed
He's a
hitter.
righty. Okay, well then, is it hard on righties too?
Yeah, it's hard on everyone. It's a bad place to hit.
Yeah, and he ends up being kind of even worse, back to 31%, which is better than early in his career for sure, but worse than his 2021 and 2022 numbers. It under 260, just another 25 home runs. His defense was just like he didn't have a bad season, but I think everyone keeps comparing him to his 2021 season, which looking
is
at
fair,
his
right?
it's fair, but also looking at his career numbers, that definitely looks like a fluke. Like he's never done that again. It was one time. He's never repeated it.
That's true. But I think the Dodgers are not looking for that guy. They might just be looking for a power bat that is capable to play in the outfield a bit, and they don't really need much more than that.
Exactly. I think the Dodgers are looking for a 2 WAR player that hits 25 home runs, is decent in the outfield, not terrible, but like someone who can go and platoon with Jason Hayward or platoon with Chris Taylor. Yeah. And this is a really, really good pickup for that, because that's exactly what Teo does really well. He's going to hit 25 home runs. He's always a 1 to 2 WAR player. Like that is something that he's never failed to do, was accumulate at least a WAR in a full season. So,
and then as that lineup continues to get deeper and deeper, the Dodgers are a team that can find him the right matchups, and they can, sit him against really tough right-handed pitchers. Like you mentioned with the platoon, they're gonna get the most out of him, as they seem to do with lots of hitters. Prime example, JD Martinez last year, right? He coming off a little bit of a down year. He goes to the Dodgers, he finds his power stroke again, and he was awesome last year. Like that's exactly what I see him filling for this team. He can DH a little bit. And good signing.
Yeah. And let's stick with the Mariners here. And I realize that doesn't seem like Mariners, but that's where he played last year. So let's stick with the Mariners real quick. And they send Robbie Ray, who was out last year with injury, send him down to San Francisco and get back Mitch Haniger. Old friend, absolute Seattle legend, Mitch Haniger, and Anthony DeSclafani. So that's a lot bigger trade than I expected to happen coming out of Seattle this year. I'm not going to lie. I really like that for Seattle, because they do need a power hitter. They do need a regular outfielder, especially losing Teo. And Haniger has played there with success. The fans love him. Like this is a pretty good move to reunite with him. DeSclafani he's probably going to be out of the bullpen, right?
I would think so. I think he's like the extra starter, because they're so loaded in the rotation. He's just like the guy they would plug in if anyone got injured.
Yeah, so he'll be their length guy. He'll be out of the bullpen. He'll come in as the 6th starter if need be. And DeSclafani's a pretty decent pitcher too. He's had some really good seasons there in San Francisco. I actually kind of really like this trade on Jerry DiPoto's side. Now, looking at it from the San Francisco side, they're getting Robbie Ray, who hasn't pitched in a year. And then before that, he had a really good year, but then absolutely blew up in the postseason and basically tanked the Mariners postseason in that one game against.
I had forgotten about that, but you clearly have not.
I have not forgotten about that. What do you think they're going to get out of Robbie Ray? Like Robbie Ray his career's been weird, because he was one type of pitcher early on, and then he kind of just changed entirely and quit walking a bunch of people. And
I mean, I don't think he changed as a pitcher. He was always a guy that struck out ridiculous numbers of batters. The one thing that did change was, yeah, the walks. He was able to get that under control in 2021 when he won the Cy Young with the Blue Jays. 2022, he was also not quite as good as 21, but he was still really, really good during that season. the The thing that scares me about him is like having the time off, coming back from Tommy John surgery. It's like, is he gonna have his command back that he seemed to have figured out those last 2 seasons when he pitched, or is he gonna go back to being the Robbie Ray that like was getting DFA'd by Arizona or whatever? Like that could very well happen, but he's a super talented pitcher, amazing arm when he's right. But I don't know. Like, I think it's fine for both sides because the players they're trading up are like Mitch Haniger, who's always hurt. That's the issue with him.
Yeah.
He's a good player, but it's not like he's a guarantee to stay on the field. And they've just added a new outfielder in Jung Hoo Lee. Maybe they don't feel like they need Haniger really, and they're kind of like swinging for the upside with Robbie Ray that he comes back and becomes that top rotation arm that they desperately, desperately need.
Well, that and the fact that they don't really have a rotation. So once Robbie Ray comes back from Tommy John, which I don't know when he's expected to actually be back. Do you think he
It was
could be
pretty
back for the
bad.
beginning
I
of the year?
No, I think it's going to be like mid to late part of the season.
Okay. But yeah, but when he comes back, then they might finally have some semblance of a rotation. Because last year they had 3 starters and then they went bullpen games pretty much the entire year. And right now they're looking like they're going to have Logan Webb, who is very clearly their ace, Ross
Yep.
Stripling, Kyle Harrison, and then
They've got Cobb coming back sometime from his injury, probably mid-season.
yeah. But to start the season, the roster resource is actually slotting in Keaton Wynn and Tristan Beck.
Yeah, it's rough right now.
Yeah. So Robbie Ray coming back from injury could be huge for this club. So
But kind of like what you're trying to say is that they need to somehow tread water in the first half, otherwise it's not even going to matter for this season.
yeah, and I kind of wonder if that's what they're thinking is like it doesn't really matter anyway. Like how many years is Robbie Ray going to be on the payroll? 2 more years
So
after
Rob,
this year.
yeah, so
So
Robbie Ray's actually locked up for a while here,
yeah, he's
and
locked up through 2026. He can opt out after 2024 though.
which seems unlikely if he's coming back so late in the season to have enough time to actually like get back to pitching well and then decide make that decision. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't think it's going to
because
happen.
he's getting 25 million a year in 25 and 26. So it kind of feels
Yeah,
like he'll stick. Um but it almost feels like this is a move that they're planning for 2025 and not for 2024.
yeah, yeah.
Like they just kind of know that they aren't there pitching wise to actually compete in this division because like they've got to catch up to the Diamondbacks who have a really young club that has showed a lot of promise last year making it to the World Series. And I don't know that they're going to make it to the World Series again. That kind of seemed like luck. But I do think that's a club that's in a lot better position.
Yeah, based on
The,
what happened with the guy we're going to talk about it here in a minute, missing on Imanaga. I mean, they have to go out and make a splash with the pitcher because they just can't seem to land the guy that they're looking for. Like, is that Blake Snell? Is that
Jordan
Jordan Montgomery? Is
Montgomery.
that someone? Yeah,
I feel like Montgomery would be a decent fit.
he would fit on any team,
Well, that's
really.
fair.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Always on the field, always consistent.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he fits with every team. But it sounds like he wants to go back to either Texas or New York. It sounds like he doesn't really want to go anywhere else, at least from the rumblings that have been out there. But I mean, obviously, Imanaga was basically, he was almost guaranteed to go to the Giants. And then
And then one
today,
day later, he signed with the Cubs.
yeah,
Yeah,
Shota Imanaga today, 4-year, $53 million. The Cubs have the ability to extend that to 5-year, 80 after 2025 and 2026. If they don't in those specific years, he can opt out if they don't pick it up that year. Um, yeah, so
yeah.
that's
So it's an interesting contract. I think it's worth talking about that a little bit. Basically, I see it as like protections on both sides. So like if he goes out and dominates in his first 2 years, then it's an obvious decision for the Cubs. They'll just pick up the option and it'll become a 5-year deal for 80 million. No problem. If he's injured or something, then it becomes more interesting. Like how, like, will he want to opt out at that point? It will it just be a 4-year deal at that point because um, the Cubs won't want him for the 5th year or whatever. But I don't know. Like it feels like a steal on the surface when you just look at the guaranteed 4-year, 53 million. When Jeff Passan and others were saying this was going to be $100+ million contract, and it's about half of that at this point for guaranteed money. And this is a guy that I think he's going to turn out to be very reliable. Like he's not going to be um, Yamamoto. He's not like an ace of a staff, but he was like amazing this past year, and he's had very good seasons in Japan. He had a higher strikeout rate than Yamamoto. He had a walk rate under 4% this year. I mean, he is a like a star pitcher in that league. We'll see how it carries over, but I don't know. I'm excited. Like he's going to be good.
Yeah, he's 30 years old, so he's definitely not the youngest starting pitcher that's come over from Japan this offseason. But he's not old by any means. Right there in his prime, he is a really good pitcher. He pitched in the WBC on that same team as Shohei and Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki, and he was a really big part of that championship for them as well. So
He pitched that final game. Actually, started it.
yeah. So I'm really excited. I was furious when I saw who we went to today. Absolutely livid. So that's going to be a pain in the butt for me, but I do really like that signing for the Cubs. I like it for him. I do think he could have got more money, and I think he probably was offered more money, but there is an allure to the Cubs, and with the Cubs having, why am I blanking on his name? The right fielder.
Seiya.
Yeah, Seiya Suzuki. There we go. I think there's just some comfort things there that kind of convinced him to come to Chicago.
Yeah, that definitely could be.
Yeah, because like San Francisco was huge on this guy when they missed out on Yamamoto and they missed out on Shohei and they missed out on fill in the blank. All of them. Any free agent. I mean, they missed out on Frankie Montas. I'm sure they were in on him.
Well, that's the thing. Getting back to the contract, I guess Frankie Montas has more, like a higher average annual value than Imanaga. I mean, I don't really get that at all.
Yeah, I
doesn't
don't
make
either,
sense.
and that's why I think that he was probably offered a lot more, and he did this as a comfort thing. Is because there is a lot to coming to a new country. Like if you have someone that you know personally and you can work with them and live in a city where you feel a lot more comfortable, I would probably take less money for that too. Like
Yeah.
he'd be the only Japanese player on San Francisco, for instance, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So like I'm sure that that's a fairly decent part of that. Yeah, he'd be the only. He would. Yeah, Jung Hoo Lee is the only Asian player on all of San Francisco. So like he doesn't really even have anyone to relate with. So I wouldn't be surprised if that played a portion of it. Let's see what else we got. The Tampa Bay Rays have been making some moves. So as they always do, their moves are pretty much only through trades. They traded Luke Raley to the Seattle Mariners for Jose Caballero, a rookie first baseman last year, who played pretty darn solid.
He's a shortstop, man.
He's a shortstop? Why did I think he
Yeah.
played first? Am I making stuff up again?
I feel like I know what you're talking about. Like maybe he played first, but he's supposed to be actually a defense first shortstop,
Second base.
middle infielder.
Okay, 64 games
He
is
played
second. He DH'd a bit. I think that's maybe what I was thinking.
Yeah, so this guy kind of completely went under my radar. Like I knew who he was, but I knew next to nothing about him. His season was kind of interesting. He was a little bit worse than league average, but he ended up putting up a 2.2 WAR season, kind of buoyed by his defense and his base running. Um, he's supposedly a very good shortstop defender, and the Rays have a little bit of a opening at shortstop due to the Wander
We
Franco
will. I
situation,
was going to say we will not be going into depth on that.
and also Taylor Walls, who uh, would normally play shortstop, is slowly recovering from a hip surgery that he had this offseason. So
And they traded Vidal Brujan.
traded Vidal Brujan. They traded that other guy, right?
Rayleigh?
That other shortstop, uh, Xavier
Oh,
Edwards.
yeah.
Um, so like shortstop's a big hole, and they give up a player in Rayleigh who had a kind of a breakout rookie season this past season. So it was like a rookie for rookie trade, kind of interesting to me. And um, Rays are doing Rays things, but like it also makes me look at the Rays roster right now and be like, what's going on with this team? Like they don't seem like they're good, but maybe that's just the Rays vibe.
Well, I think part of it was when that thing came out and their superstar was probably not coming back. That kind of changed their entire trajectory. Like their big guy that was locked up for a long time that they were going to try and build around is no longer there. So they don't really have a star other than Randy. Like, I guess Isaac Paredes is about the next best thing that they've got to
Yeah.
star
I
after
mean,
Randy.
they have good
Like
players.
they
No
have
question.
good
Like,
players, but
Josh Lowe's a very
they
good
don't
player.
have the guy.
Yeah.
So I think part of it was just that they maybe not panicked, but they realized that they're going to have to pivot entirely. So like they have young guys like Oslevis Basabi, Johnny DeLuca,
Junior Caminero at some point.
Junior Caminero, but like unless Junior Caminero comes up and is the superstar with the top prospect status that he has, like I don't know that they have anything close in the pipe that is
Yeah.
a
I
sure
guess
thing. So
I did read so like with the Rayleigh thing, the Rays are not scared to trade like players when their value is high. They've got no issue with that. And that's what I feel like they did with Rayleigh, because he's a guy that like he's he's became like one of my favorite players this past year just because of his profile as a player does not fit like what he looks like, because he's just a massive dude. He's got the power, but he's also like 80th percentile sprint speed, and he stole 14 bases this past year. So I don't know, like maybe they just felt like he wasn't going to repeat what he did this past season, which was amazing. Uh, and now they're just looking for the next Luke Rayleigh. So they've got like Curtis Mead, Jonathan Aranda. I think there's another guy in there that I'm missing, but they're looking for the next pop up guy, and he's probably hidden somewhere on that 40-man roster.
that, or he's a guy that they just added to their 40-man roster because they also traded Andrew Kittredge from their bullpen to the St. Louis Cardinals. And in return, they got Richie Palacios, who is now going to be on his third team in 3 years. He was with Cleveland in 2022, played 54 games there. Didn't really play all that great, wasn't really given that big of a shot. He played 32 games at the end of the season last year for the Cardinals when there were some injuries and things, and he looked really good. As the season progressed, he got more comfortable, started hitting more home runs. He kind of got his average from 232 when he was in Cleveland up to about 258 with the Cardinals. He played good defense. He put up half a WAR in 32 games. Like he had a really solid end of the year. And the Cardinals had too many outfielders, just straight up. They can't find at bats for anybody. And so someone had to go, and they needed pitching. So Richie Palacios gets shipped off to Tampa, where he's now going to go with the other guy that we couldn't find at bats for and became a superstar in Tampa, and Randy Arozarena. So I'm worried that's going to happen again. I'm very worried that's going to happen again. But this is a really good pickup for Tampa, given the situation they're in right now. A guy that has some pretty good promise. He's got some pretty decent game power. His hit tool's really good. He's quick. Like, ultimately, he's not going to be a superstar, but I think he could pop off and be a regular, everyday outfielder for the Rays and be pretty solid. So,
yeah, I'm just looking at his page right here. It looks like all through the minors and whenever he was in the majors, well, not really in the majors, but in the minors, he was like a big walker with like double digit walk rates every year. When he was on the Cardinals, he said, "Screw it, I'm here. I'm just gonna hit," and he only walked 5.9% of the time, and that sometimes pays off. Sometimes you can be too passive and just be waiting for your pitch. Sometimes you just gotta rip it.
And that's something that like Lars Nootbaar has been going through, where there's times where he gets too passive, and then he'll go through stretches where he starts swinging a little bit earlier on pitches that he would normally take, and he excels. But I think there's a part of it with Richie where he's just trying to earn a spot on a team, so he's trying to prove he can hit, because that's like his contact tool is his best tool. So
he only struck out 10% for the Cardinals this
yeah,
past year. It's like amazing.
And he's an under 20% guy at every single stop that he's ever made, with the exception of 2022 AAA for Cleveland, where he was 20.9. So not even a full percent higher than 20. Like, he does have some really good tools. He wasn't going to get a great shot in St. Louis with Jordan Walker and Dylan Carlson still in the club, and Lars and Alec Burleson, and name like 30 other outfielders. Like, there just wasn't enough at bats to go around. So I'm really happy for Richie. I think he will get a pretty regular role in Tampa. Like, if anyone's going to figure out how to make the most of this guy, it's going to be Tampa. So, all right. So 2 more notes here. One of them, the Cardinals, in addition to getting Andrew Kittredge, made another addition this week. And this one's a little bit of an interesting situation, because it is not a player. It is not even a full-time front office position. But the Cardinals have brought in Chaim Bloom as a part-time advisor to John Mozeliak. Chaim Bloom was the GM of the Red Sox for the last 6 years.
4 years.
4 years. Before that, he was with the Rays, and he kind of turned them into, or helped turn them into, the team that, or the powerhouse that they've been, with a minuscule payroll for the last 7, 8, 9 years. So this is a little bit of an interesting thing, because he's not a full-time role. He's just an advisor. He's not even moving to St. Louis. He's going to stay in Boston, but he'll come and be in person for spring training. And what?
I don't blame him.
I don't either. St. Louis is pretty dangerous right now. I wouldn't want to move there either. But crap, you distracted me. What was I saying? Oh, he's not moving to St. Louis full time, but there's also some comments that Mo has made in the past couple of years about planning to maybe take a step back, not leave the club, but take a step back here in the into 24, into 25, somewhere around there. Jeff Jones from the Belleville News Democrat, which is on the Illinois side of the river from St. Louis, but he covers the Cardinals exclusively, and he kind of mentioned that, like, the Cardinals have never hired a GM or president of baseball ops from directly outside the organization. Now Chaim Bloom is technically in the organization. If Mo is serious about stepping back in the next couple of years, it could be one of those that's like a long-term interview sort of thing with Chaim Bloom, to see if maybe he wants to come in, is a good fit with Gersh, is a good fit with DeWitt. If he's kind of on the same wavelength with them as far as the future of the club, and potentially bring him in as the new president of baseball ops when Mo finally steps back. Because Mo's not going to get fired, but his contract's up at the end of next year, I believe. So if he's doesn't want to pick up a new contract, then maybe the Cardinals go to Chaim Bloom. So we'll see. It was just a really interesting thing, especially because it's been talked about all offseason. Like, there's been rumors going as far back as October that he was going to come in with the Cardinals after he was let go by the Red Sox. And the Cardinals kept saying there's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. There's no news on that front. And then all of a sudden this week, he is finally announced as being an employee of the club. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess even beyond like becoming the next head man or whatever, it's just a great move to get his opinion, because Chaim Bloom, I feel like, was unfairly let go by the Red Sox. I didn't think he deserved what he got. I think the Red Sox are actually going to start seeing the fruits of his labor coming through here in the next couple of years. I think he did a great job with that organization. Um, the reason he got the job, the work that he did with the Rays, and specifically pitching like identification of pitching talent, and that's exactly what the Cardinals need, right? They've kind of lost their way with pitching development, and getting his insights there could go a long way to getting them back to where they'd like to be.
Yeah, and this is a club that under DeWitt, they've never been okay with being bad. They're fine with mediocrity, but being bad is off limits.
They shoot for mediocrity.
Oh yeah, we shoot for mediocrity, and sometimes we luck into success.
Yeah, so, it's not a bad strategy at all.
No, not at all. Like, set the floor high, and then sometimes you'll way outperform your floor, but if you never drop below it, you're always going to be in it. So that's their thing here, and I feel like Chaim Bloom would probably be pretty good at keeping to that status quo too. So just give him a little bit of money. We got to get this Bally Sports thing figured out, and there's probably going to be news about that in like the next week or two. So, all right, the last thing. Maybe we should have done this one first, because this is maybe the least exciting transaction. Sean Manaea and Harrison Bader, both to the New York Mets. So
like individually, I think these are like good moves. I actually like them. I mean, Bader, we know, talented player.
Yeah, and it's a 1 year trial deal at like 10 mil or something like that, 8.5 maybe.
Sure, he'll be more like a part-time player at this point. And then Sean Manaea, I can see why he took this deal, because he's going to get the chance to start. The Mets need guys in their rotation. Sean Manaea went to Driveline, and he's not like the success story. He's like that kind of worked out okay. Like, he added velocity. He was okay out of the bullpen, but it didn't really pan out for him as a starter with the Giants last year. He gets another go at it here with the Mets. But seeing what the Mets are doing right now, like, I've got no issue with what they're doing. It's just crazy that it feels like the Mets have zero chance to win the division. And they literally have the highest payroll in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, this is definitely the shift that I don't think people were hoping was going to happen, but it's the shift that's probably needed from an organizational standpoint. Instead of going out and paying all of these massive contracts to superstars that are kind of aged in the ones that they were targeting and able to get, not bad players by any means, but just it wasn't working. And they didn't have a farm system really. Like, they have some top end talent, but no depth. And it's one of those that I think bringing in David Stearns, they're realizing that they need to actually start this thing from the middle out. Like,
they're kind of old. They've got a lot of old players because they were built as a team originally that was supposed to like win right away.
Yeah. And so I think they're starting this middle out approach, where they're kind of getting some good talent on the field, but not top end talent. Some talent that's going to help bridge the gap to Luis Angel Acuna, to who else did they get in trades this year?
They got Drew Gilbert from the Astros.
Right. And there was one more in that trade. It was Drew Gilbert and an outfielder.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name is.
But yeah, they're basically trying to bridge the gap to those guys, is what I think they're doing, while trying to shed some payroll to make it a little easier to get some younger talent in here they'll let some of these older contracts fade out and basically start a competitive window here in about 2 years is kind of what it looks like to me they're doing. And I don't think it's a bad move.
I agree.
Like,
No. That I'm totally on board with what they're doing. It's just I couldn't have really like pictured it going kind of like this a year ago.
yeah, I couldn't either. Like, it just, I loved Cohen's enthusiasm. I loved his
like
enthusiasm.
backfired so
The
badly.
idea that he had of, I'm gonna get a championship quickly. In every other sport, he probably would have. Baseball is a fickle mistress.
And you can't buy championships.
You can't buy championships. When the Dodgers don't win the World Series this year, we'll be able to double down on that fact where you can't buy championships. You could buy better lottery tickets with better odds, but that's about it. So sometimes lotto tickets pay off, sometimes they don't. It didn't for Cohen, and I think now he's looking at, okay, how do we make this thing higher floor? So
and sustainable. So that's
and sustainable.
The goal. Yeah.
So cool. Any closing thoughts?
Don't think so.
Are you ready to surface from the Shark Tank here? Because
yeah,
my oxygen tank is here. Yeah, same. All right, so thank you all very much for hanging out with us tonight. Make sure to let us know on social media what you think the best idea out of the Shark Tank was. If you have any ideas that we didn't come up with, let us know those too. We will be back here next week. And until then, have a good one.
If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.